Canby, welcome to the Canby City Council regular meeting for December 4th, 2019. If you please stand for the invocation and the Pledge of Allegiance. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you so much for this great community. Thank you for this special time of year and the special season that we are in. Thank you for the abundance of love and joy that this time of year can bring, but we also understand that there's a lot of need at this time of the year. I ask that you bless this community. I ask that you bless the food that is here, that it goes to people in need and fills their stomachs and fills gaps that they may be in need of filling. I ask these things in your name. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Next on the agenda, we'll move in. We've got a proclamation this evening, and it's for the Kiwanis Canby Community Food and Toy Drive. Whereas the Kiwanis Canby Community Food and Toy Drive originated for the purpose of providing toys and food for less fortunate families in our community. And whereas by way of this proclamation, the City of Canby recognizes that greater public awareness and involvement is needed in order for such programs to achieve their highest potential in providing and promoting joy to each household in this community. And whereas Canby community members have undertaken the project of collecting and distributing toys and food to these needy families during the month of December, and whereas donations for food baskets can be left at various locations around Canby, now therefore I, Brian Hodson, by virtue of the authority vested in me as the mayor of the City of Canby, do hereby proclaim December 14th through December 21st as Kiwanis Canby Community Food and Toy Drive Week, and urge all people of the City of Canby to observe this time by participating in this toy and food drive, helping to provide assurance that each family may have a twinkle in their eye this holiday season. Given unto my hand this 4th day of December 2019. And we've got a few members from Kiwanis here.
Thank you very much.
There's Bob for you. Bob, thank you, sir. Thank you for being here.
Oh.
We'll turn on Ron. I guess we can get a picture here for the paper.
Okay.
Carol.
Yeah, smile pretty. Smile pretty and say horse poop. Okay, thank
Do
you.
you want to take a moment to say a few things?
Do I have to, okay. Do you want to sit with me, Hannah?
Go ahead.
Thank you all for doing this and for recognizing this effort. It's a community-wide effort, and we really love that about it, that everybody comes together. I mean, we're the Kiwanis, but we even have Rotary people come and help us, so we love that. And actually, there's Girl Scouts here tonight, and they're helping too. Every year, and this goes back to when my kids were in Girl Scout, my daughter was in Girl Scouts, they wrap candy in tubes every year, and every toy bag gets a candy tube. So everyone in the community is involved. The Boy Scouts come and help, the rodeo board, so we really appreciate your support, and thank you very much. Last year, almost 400 families got food boxes, and about 1,000 kids got toys, so
Wow.
appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you for what you do.
Do you want me to?
Yeah, if you have bags, we can help fill them, or
Do you happen to have a bag?
The schedule for, if anyone wants to come and help, the schedule is posted on the website.
okay.
Thank you, Jen.
Topple the mayor.
That's fun. Thanks. Yeah, in case you missed that, if you're wanting to help put food baskets together, if you visit the Canby Kiwanis website, they'll have the dates and times that they're looking for volunteers to help do that. So, something like that, yeah. Before we move into communications, we have some special guests here this evening. So we have Girl Scout representatives here from 2 troops. I believe Allie and Isabel are going to come up and introduce the troops. They're working on their government badges for the Girl Scouts. Come on up, ladies.
Hi, my name is Ali, the president of the 21716 troop, and our last girls, we are doing the badge, the inside government badge for our badge at our meeting, and I've written a speech about Girl Scouts that I'd like to read now.
Allie, if you could scoot closer to the microphone, that way the
Sorry.
whole auditorium can hear you and everyone that's out there watching in TV land can hear you as well.
Yes, okay, and here's my speech. I hope you enjoy it. I don't want to be Girl Scout president because I want to be Girl Scout president because I'm not just here to have a good time. I'm not just here to goof off. I'm here to find a way for others, similar to how I do things. But I want to learn. I will guess when I don't know. I'll find a way for all of us, as a family, as Girl Scouts. We will not do things for only us. We will help those who need us most. We are here to help, not just have fun or goof off. But I do things for you, not me. I do things for us. I do things so we can be closer, so we can be who we are without anyone saying we can't. We are who we want, and we want to help. I do. I want to serve. You might not want to, but someone needs to remind us all that we can't do this alone. I'm telling you, I don't want to rule over you. No, I would never. I want to do what's best for us, because it's kind, and kindness will hold us together, even in times of sorrow. I need you to help me, and I want to, that's all. I want to spend my time to serve you just because I want you to have the best. I want you to be happy, and that makes me happy. I love this world, this time, and I love it here. It is this time. Help each other, because when you help other people, you're helping yourself too. And then we will work together as one. So next time you see a friend or family member that you were angry at, say something kind, do something kind, love on them. And together, soon, they will help you too. And together, we will serve others, as friends, as family. But together, we are more. We are Girl Scouts.
Thank you, Allie. Very nice. And Isabel, did you want to introduce yourself and what troop you're with, and then maybe the girls in your group?
My name's Isabel, and my troop number is 45166.
Wonderful. And did you want to introduce the girls that are here? Put them all on the spot as well? You don't have to if you don't want to. No? All right.
Well, the girls that I have with me from my troop
Yep.
over there is Aaliyah. Back there is my friend Lucy and my sister Kaylee. And there's my friend Itea, Penelope, and Scarlett's back there.
Well, wonderful. Welcome all. Oh, and then in the back corner is Audrey. Well, thank you for being here this evening, and I understand that you will be here for a little while, so hopefully we'll give you a good idea of what it is, the kinds of things that we take care of and get to do up here. So thank you for being here, and let you know, Councilor Parker reminded me that this video does play on the city website or make available here within like tomorrow, I think, and then it also will run on CTV5. So if you want to pull it off and watch it, you can see yourself on TV. Thank you, ladies.
Thank you.
smart to choose it, the short agenda.
They were very smart. Mr. McClure, any communications at this point, sir?
None, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. It's our first opportunity for citizen input and community announcements. This is an opportunity for audience members to address the city council on items that are not on the agenda. Each person will be given 3 minutes to address the city council. Please complete a yellow testimony card, which are these here, and they're in the back. And please bring it up to our city recorder, and we'll give you that opportunity to speak. If it's something that we can address tonight, we will do so. If not, myself and our city manager will work out a way to figure out what it is we need to do to answer the questions that you may have. For agenda items, please fill out the yellow testimony card, and we will make sure that you get to speak on that agenda item. The only yellow card I have right now is Ms. Brashears, who wants to talk about proclamations. Good evening, Irene. How are you?
Oh, fine, thank you.
Good to see you, Jim.
Ditto. My name is Irene Brashears, and thank you for this opportunity to speak on proclamations. The reason I'm here is proclamations are really important for a lot of our groups. And I remember after the last proclamation we had, there was an article in the paper, Canby Herald, saying that the council was going to review and look at proclamations that were hitting 25. And they thought, oh dear, what should we do? Should we cut them out? Should we, drop the numbers and everything? So I'm reading it, I'm going, no! Because I think I'm under 3 of them, so that, cut us out. But they said, I found another article saying there's a review needed for a number of reasons. Our city does not actually have a protocol or a format guideline for proclamations. So I went on the internet and I found some city proclamations, one from Missouri City, Texas, Savannah, Georgia, and one from North Carolina, to just kind of give guidelines and stuff. And I felt that we have 2 meetings a month, the first and third Wednesday, so that's 12 months, 24 times they can have opportunities for proclamations to be done. I mean, it can even go up to 50 if there's, a number of proclamations per meeting type of thing. But what I wanted to say to you, as you're looking and trying to figure out what can we do, because there's some sensitive things that, in proclamations, because there are frivolous kinds and things that you go, holy mackerel, you're kidding me, type of thing. And then there's serious ones, like the December proclamation of the Kiwanis annual food drive. And I wanted to come here specifically because the paper said that this is the last proclamation for the year. And I wanted to make sure I said something because the Kiwanis, our Canby Aurora VFW, has worked closely with them and the American Legion for a few years, many years ago, on the toy and food drive, and we were there boxing and collecting food and delivering food. It is a major, major importance in this committee. And so when I was looking up the definition of proclamation, it says a proclamation is a document which dedicates a day or a week or a month to honor a special event, cause, or purpose. Proclamations are typically issued by the mayor to recognize the importance of a community event, significant achievements by a community member, or to increase public awareness of a worthy cause. I can speak from my experience that February for Iwo Jima, it's a worthy cause, it's a historical cause. That was a kickoff, April 19th, 1995, that Canby joined together globally for the 50th anniversary of the end of World War II. We are going to the 75th anniversary of the end of World War II and of the battle on Iwo Jima next February 22nd, 2020. And the city was a part of it. That's why the mayor always comes every year, and we thank you for that, that it was a city-sanctioned event, and we still are doing it. And next year will be our 25th anniversary year of putting on this event for the World War II veterans. The other part is we have the food drive that's from the postal service. We have the annual food drive, which picks up the food that you guys just brought in for the December food drive and the Christmas bags, boxes. For Kiwanis, we pick up the slack because all the food you guys gave in December, the shelves are empty in the spring, and that's why the postal service does that. And it's 27 years we've been doing that. And then the last one, we have the POW MIA Recognition Day. And for that, that's important for all of us because at the memorial, it's Warnie Newton. He was a POW MIA and his remains were recovered. And so with the memorial, we have our local boy come back home. It's just incredible. And many of these things, they're not frivolous to us. As you read down the line, you have members of the city, they put in for the waterworks and the swimming pool. It's all for the community and all for significant events. And I hope you consider this and not just, cut us out and stuff. So that's why I wanted to bring this before you. So if you just consider the proclamations and how much it means to everybody in the community. So thank you.
Thank you, Irene. I appreciate that very much. Concludes, I guess, is an input at this point. Moving into mayor's business. There's a new, I guess, nonprofit organization called Pass It On here in Canby. And what it is, it's an opportunity if you have kids or grandkids or nieces or nephews that have outgrown sports equipment, you can donate it, and then they are then turning it around and providing the opportunity for those that maybe want to be involved in youth sports, but you look at the fees and the ability to pay for new cleats, baseball helmets, bats, shin guards, what else goes in? Shoulder pads, lacrosse sticks. This organization, so Pass It On, starting in January, for First Thursdays, Ultimate Team Spirit will kind of be the new home for Pass It On, and they'll have the equipment there for those, for you to look at it, to buy it at a very, very discounted rate, and the proceeds go back into Canby sports programs to lower fees and provide scholarships for kids to play. So keep a lookout for those barrels. I think they're Team Spirit, Oliver Insurance, Cuts First Thriftway. There might be one other around town. So thought I'd bring that one to everyone's attention. Clackamas County Coordinating Committee is tomorrow evening, so I'll report on that at the next meeting. Monday evening was the Region 1 Area Commission on Transportation. Just a couple of updates. So we got an update regarding ODOT's preparedness for the winter weather. They have 200 people across the state ready to go for any storm weather, snow mitigation that is needed. 70 plows are in waiting, ready to go, and there's 500,000 gallons of de-icer ready to be spread along the highways and byways of Oregon. So they are definitely ready for the winter season. As a side note, Canby does not have a snowplow. We have no plans to buy a snowplow. For grunts and giggles, a couple years ago, I looked up the fact, what does a new snowplow cost? Any guesses? You're right, it's almost $500,000 for a new snowplow. So we figure for about a week of snow, we don't need a snowplow. Get some Netflix, get some popcorn, a couple of blankets, and hang out.
Councilor Berwick's truck.
I've seen your truck. You could probably do it as well, Councilor Berge. So the big piece of the meeting was an update on the tolling conversation. So looking at creating and having conversations about creating revenue for I-205 and I-5 expansions and repairs. So they're really looking at what would tolling look like in those stretches. So for 205, the tolling, they would toll all lanes starting just kind of north of Abernathy Bridge and stretching down to about where the Stafford Road area is. And then I-5, they're looking at tolling all lanes through central Portland, so just north of Portland down possibly through the Terwilliger curves. So the Oregon Transportation Commission, which oversees basically all of the transportation pieces in Oregon, will be meeting this month and the next couple months to discuss it. Again, there's some federal pieces to that, because generally tolling is only allowed for new construction of new highways, and this is an expansion of existing, so they have to get basically federal approval to be able to do the tolling piece. So there's a lot yet still to go. There's a lot of conversation on how much to toll, what it's going to cost to put in the tolling mechanisms, and what is that going to look like. And then something that many of us in Clackamas County keep bringing up is, what is that going to do to the roads not on the freeways, as people find ways to avoid tolling and use, I don't know, like 99E through Canby to get around tolling windows. So more to come on that. Light the Night is on this Friday. Sorry, Light Up the Night is this Friday. The parade starts at 6, and then we'll be lighting the park and the Christmas tree shortly thereafter. So come early. The weather's supposed to be beautiful. Last year we had several thousand people in Waite Park for the event, and I suspect it will probably break that again this year. It's a great event, so please come down, check it out. Operation Snuggle, so those of you that don't know or are not familiar with Operation Snuggle, is an organization that started actually by a Canby High School student and her mom. And the idea is to provide tie blankets and pillows every year to Canby. This year it's Canby, Molalla, and North Marion students that are having, they're just having housing insecurity. So either they're homeless or they're sleeping on friends' couches. And so the goal, I think, this year is close to 400 blankets to put together. So that'll be 9 o'clock in the morning at Baker Prairie Middle School. Thriftway usually provides donuts, there's hot chocolate, and there's usually a fun, friendly competition between Canby Fire and Canby Police. So definitely come out and check that out.
And please bring scissors if you have them.
Yeah, bring scissors. There's always
Don't
in
run
short
with them,
supplies.
as Paul said.
Yeah, don't run with them. Also on Saturday is Christmas at the Grove. That starts at 5 o'clock. There's a Christmas Bazaar at the Canby Adult Center this weekend. There's a whole host of events going on this weekend. So check the Canby Chamber website or Facebook page. They have them all listed there. Speaking of the Chamber, I want to thank them very much for a great Chamber luncheon on Tuesday. So their luncheon on December is usually out at Canby Grove. They bring in the high school choir, the Cantalinas, and to me, it's usually the start of the Christmas season. They do an amazing lunch, and the singing is fantastic. We have some very, very talented high school students in our community, and so I think they're running a couple of performances next week at the Performing Arts Center, so please go check them out. They are fantastic every year, but to me, it's really kind of kicks off the season. I want to say thank you to the Canby Center. They did a Thanksgiving dinner and served 140 meals there out of their little building, and so kudos to them and a thank you to them for stepping in and helping our community in that way. Something for city staff, if we could please look into. I had a meeting with a number of concerned truck drivers here in Canby and about the lack of truck traffic or truck route signage. We seem to be replacing a lot of signs around Ivy Street, and since that time I've been noticing that we've got trucks trying to make some very odd turns in areas that they shouldn't be, and so I kind of followed up, and we're definitely seem to be, I'm not sure if that's on us to put those up or if we need to work with ODOT on delineating those much better, because they seem to be lacking. And I know that GPS is part of the problem, using I won't name names like Waze or, Google Maps or whatever, that tend to direct trucks, I know, where they shouldn't be going. And so if we could maybe, Scott, take a look at that, because it's really kind of creating some jam ups for truck drivers, and then they feel then because of that, and they're going in routes that they shouldn't be, that some of them are getting ticketed because they're not following the truck routes, but then conversely, we might not have the right signage around town. So if we could take a look at that, I'd appreciate that. That concludes my business. We'll move into councilor comments and liaison reports. Councilor Berge, anything from you tonight?
So we have one more opening for Planning Commission. There is an opening is posted on Facebook as well as on the city page. So if anybody's out there is interested in joining the Planning Commission, there is an open seat.
Yeah, we've got, Melissa and I were just talking about that the other day, and I think there's a total of like 8 boards and committee openings in the city. So if anyone is interested, definitely, I know we're posting in the paper, on the city Facebook page, websites. So yeah, definitely some opportunity to be involved for sure. Thank you. Councilor Parker?
Well, I attended the Historic Landmark Commission on Monday, and they are proceeding with another historic survey to provide us with some additional information. They're also preparing a celebration for the 150th anniversary of the platting of Canby. And it's looking like it's going to be a pretty robust sort of thing. We don't have Tony Crawford in town this year, but we're still going to try and involve some students from the school district if we can in some sort of participatory thing. The other thing that I wanted to do was brag on city staff. We received a report from planner Sandy Freund about a owner of a historic building that he started remodeling and putting plastic plank siding on, and then came in and asked for permission. And Sandy stood her ground and said, no, one, you need to apply in advance, and 2, that does not meet historic standards. And there was quite a long series of discussions, and Sandy stood her ground and said, no, this is what you have to do. He took the plastic siding on and put on the historic approved lap siding. So yay for staff. That's just terrific, and the commission wanted me to pass along its appreciation for Sandy doing that.
Thank you for sharing that. It's great. Councilor Hensley?
Well, C4's tomorrow, and the Traffic Safety Commission meeting is next week. We do have 3 candidates, applicants, I should say, for the open seat. But Chair Coleman has decided that it would be best to have them all attend a meeting first, and then we'll do the interviews. So we'll probably be appointing that seat in January. That's all I have.
Great. Thank you. Council President Dale.
The only thing tonight, Mr. Mayor, is that the Budget Committee is one of the committees that has some openings. And you can find your applications on the city website, or come on in and talk to our wonderful front counter, and they'll fix you right up.
Great. Thank you. Councilor Farwig.
Well, continuing with the theme of the night, the library board has an opening as well. We do have some applicants for that, and we'll be interviewing soon. But if you are interested in joining the library board, get an application in really quick so we can include you in the interviews. That's all for the library. Nothing for the fire department, although Chief Davis and I were talking tonight. He's really proud of some codes that recently happened that lives have been saved, and that's in our fire department and our police department. That's thanks to both of them, and so great job to everybody involved in saving lives around town.
Okay. Thank you. Councilor Spoon.
Just a couple of things. I've been out of town for most of the time, but CTV5 is gearing up to open some rooms and some activities, and they've been having classes and teaching people how to produce. So if you're interested in that, the best way to find out is to follow them on social media, on Facebook. But to clarify, Gordon and I had to sit through and figure it out. There are 2 different CTV Channel 5 Facebook profiles, and one is active and one is not. So look for the one with where the logo is the white background with the black writing. That's the active one. If you follow the other one, you won't get the updated news. So if you're interested in following with what's happening there, maybe getting involved, learning to produce or blog or vlog or do a podcast, or all the new activities are going to be available. Follow them on social media. A couple of other events coming up. Tomorrow night is the library open house starting at 4:30, the holiday open house. And then on December 14th is the Friends of the Library Tour of Homes, which is an awesome Christmas event in the community. It's one of the biggest fundraisers for Friends of the Library, and they're the ones that sponsor a lot of the library activities. You can buy tickets for that at Cuts First or at the library. And finally, I know a few of us were there, but I wanted to give a big shout out to Bridging Cultures for their Thanksgiving event. Coin 6 was there this year, which was awesome. Over 500 people attended. There were 100 volunteers that made the event happen. 15 turkeys, I think, or 19 turkeys. 90 pounds of potatoes and 157 pounds of beef went into that event to feed the community. But it's been really fun to watch it grow every year. And it's always the Saturday before Thanksgiving. And it's always been at Baker Prairie at 5:30. That probably won't change for next year. But if you didn't attend this year or you didn't know it was an opportunity, come with your family next year. Look for the event. And it's free to everyone. And it's a Thanksgiving dinner where you can break bread with your neighbors and meet new people. And it's just a super amazing event. And so I wanted to give them a huge shout out for doing that year after year. And it just keeps growing and getting better. So
Great.
that's all I have.
Thank you very much. We'll move into the consent agenda.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
I'd like to make a motion associated with the consent agenda to move to the item B, the appointment of the Planning Commission, out of the consent agenda so we can have some discussion on it. A couple of counselors and I have some questions. And I think for government transparency and its important position for our community, some discussion would be warranted. So I'd like to make a motion that we move that out of consent agenda so we can have some discussion.
Okay. The motion has been made to take item B out of the consent agenda, the appointment of Planning Commission, and we'll treat that as a separate item. So that motion has been made by Councilor Spoon and seconded by Councilor Parker. All those in favor of doing so?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, we will make that a new item 8 here in a moment. So we will move B out of the section. Thank you. Thank you, Melissa. So I'll take a motion to approve the consent agenda with the amended changes.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Mayor, I move to approve the consent agenda, which consists of the minutes of the November 20th, 2019 City Council meeting and the reappointment of Larry Boatwright to the Planning Commission.
One second.
Great. Motion's been made by Council President Dale and seconded by Councilor Hensley to approve the consent agenda, which, there it is, include the adoption of the minutes of the November 20th, 2019 City Council meeting and the reappointment to the Planning Commission of Larry Boatwright. Any other comments or conversation on that? All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, that carries 6-0. So new item 8, I guess, or new business is the question or the comment about the appointment of the planning commissioner that we've removed from the consent agenda to this item. Did one of you, since you made the motion, do you want to address?
I'll just tell you what my concerns are. What we have to vote on is what's on the record, and I have some concerns about in the application that Mr. Taylor made for it. One of the things that I found alarming in terms of the role on Planning Commission is, let me find it really quick because I wasn't looking for it. He said, I am interested in helping ensure that city guidelines are developed, which is fine, but it's followed and enforced based on the will of the people of the city of Canby. And my concern is that that's not the job of Planning Commission. Planning Commission's job is to ensure that the applications follow the law as they exist, if they follow the law, and then there's some discretion based on things like, there's some discretion, but not, the will of the people is not the discretion that we're allowed. And it's one of the most difficult parts, I think, of being on Planning Commission or being on City Council, is that I think every single one of us, particularly when it comes to land use, has made a vote at one point in time that maybe wasn't our personal preference or maybe wasn't the will of the people, but the roll calls for following the law and whether or not the application fits the law. And I'm concerned that there was, about 2/3 of his application was about ideology and the other third was about following the will of the people. And I didn't feel like there was anything in the application that seemed like he had the objective or was willing or interested in fulfilling the actual role of planning commission. So that's my big concern. And so I had a couple of questions of staff is, how many applications were there? Two? Okay. So he wasn't the only applicant, but
Correct.
I'm trying to imagine hiring someone for my own company that put in their application that they didn't want to do the job. And I just can't see myself doing that. And it's a really important role for the city at this time of growth. And so I'm concerned about it.
Okay, so a little bit of process, so much like with most of the committees and boards. So we post that there's openings, so we take in the applicants, and not all the boards generally will do an interview of candidates for their board positions. I am involved in some, not all. So Planning Commission, Canby Utility, those are, I think, the two, Budget Committee. So in this case, for the Planning Commission, it was myself, Brian Brown, Planning Commission Chair, John Savory, and then our liaison, Trig Berge. So the four of us interviewed both candidates. And so in the course of that conversation, as I was having a conversation with Councilor Parker today, Councilor Berge and Planning Commission Chair Savory brought up the issues and the concerns laid out in his application about some of those pieces about Planning Commission, and you understand what it is that we do or is expected of the Planning Commission. And so through that dialogue, we stressed to him and pressed him about the legality and the position that is in terms of the Planning Commission being a law enforcement body, that the law that is there is because either we've stated it that way, it's state law, or those are code pieces that we as a council have put into place. So Councilor Berge, myself, and even, the four of us really drove home that point to him. And what separated him from the other candidate in this case was his experience, his involvement in a lot of the projects that recently have gone on. So he's attended a number of community meetings regarding some of the Redwood development, some of the other developments that were here in town. He was on the HOA board for Tofty and was very involved with that piece there. And based on our conversation, understood that it's not setting law, it's interpreting the law as it is and what those guidelines are, and that, he understood that the Planning Commission can't change them there, that either falls through us or all the way to the state level. So that's where that conversation went, and that's why we felt, based on that conversation and his level of understanding, that this is not an advocacy board. We can't, that's not what the Planning Commission is for.
Right.
The Planning Commission is to help steer and guide our development of our city. And so that level of conversation with him, and we had the same conversation with the other candidate to make sure that they understood the role of the Planning Commission. We do that with every Planning Commission member.
Right.
When Tim and I do Budget Committee member conversations, we get into what we can and can't talk about, because sometimes there is that piece of, well, I'm very, very dogmatic on this piece, and it's like, well, that's great, but that's not in our purview, and so we don't get to talk about that.
Right.
So that just to give you some framework of reference on that process piece.
Sure.
So,
Yeah.
Councilor Parker?
So here's my problem with where we are, and it's the first time in 10 years we've been here, is that we have contradictory information between, and I talked to Trig earlier today, since I knew he had been on the interviews, and he confirmed what you said, that the candidate kind of backtracked on some of the things that he was saying. But what we have is a part of the official document that was sent to me for me to consider my vote. There was language in there that I thought did not represent what we want in terms of a planning commission. I've said for years, the planning commission in many ways is a much more difficult job than ours. That when we get a land use issue in a quasi-judicial situation, we have discretion. But as a planning commission, you don't. It's a binary situation. Does this meet the rules or does it not? And you have to have even more of a spine on the planning commission than up here, because you have to tell people things. It doesn't matter what color it is. It doesn't matter if it's new to your neighborhood. You have to tell them all the things that a citizen thinks is logical. Doesn't matter. And what I got was language of going with the will of the people. So where I'm hoping that we have learned from this situation is that perhaps one size does not fit all when it comes to our applications. And we've got some new staff here with some great new ideas. And what I would have felt better in this situation is if Mr. Haler had pulled his application and resubmitted it with this information. Or from a process standpoint of us with our specialty commissions of having the standard application with then some specific questions related to this. But where I find myself now is voting on a situation where the evidence that I have on record contradicts hearsay information that I'm getting from my colleagues. So I'll be voting no on it. But I hope in the future, when we do these type of interviews, and even maybe the step before, when we have an application, that we get some additional information. That we say, what is important for a planning commissioner? Do you realize that you are there to enforce the law? And so on. So that becomes a part of the record that we vote on.
And go ahead. I want to respond to you when you're ready, but I want everyone to have a chance.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I was just going to say that I can kind of see the concern just because of what was in the packet is only the application. But I have full faith in the interview committee for their recommendation. I'll be voting yes based on that. But maybe a suggestion for the future is that there's some kind of a summary written about the interview afterwards. It's included in the packet, so we have that additional information with the application.
Well, that's what I was going to suggest to you, and I have a question also after I make the suggestion is, and maybe I don't know what the process, if by charter, if it's a certain way, but I think maybe if once the interview is done, the interview committee then comes to us with a nomination and explains the nomination, so that we have time to think about it versus just it being in, the consent agenda. I also have full faith in our interview committee. I think, and thank you for that explanation. That calms me a little bit. I was a little bit worried when I'm reading this and says, though I'd rather spend my time doing other stuff, I feel like I need to do this. That just gives me, having been on the planning commission before and knowing that there's a lot of stuff, this, having the backbone and the spine that you mentioned, Councilor Parker, you're right. There's a lot of times where there's a lot of stuff that comes up there, and it's not always easy to say, I know you want this, but sorry, you can't have that. We have to do this instead. So that was a little fear that I had in there as well. So I'm rambling a little bit, but then the second suggestion that I have, or question I have in regards to process, is obviously Planning Commission is an appointment, not voted, not elected. What is our ability, if we approve him tonight and we see maybe he goes back to this, what is our ability to remove him? If that's,
I don't think we've ever done that.
There isn't.
That's the only time that in my time here that we asked for a planning commissioner we've asked a planning commissioner to resign or not to re-up because it had more to do with their inability to attend meetings and therefore not be able to contribute to the job at hand, and it created, this was a number of years ago, but it ended up creating quorum issues, which resulted in meetings being canceled and put our planning department
I remember what you're talking about.
in a very sticky situation. So that's been the one time that's occurred. I can't think of any other boards. There's been conversation with me from other boards about removing members or not having them re-up, but that became more of a conversation that within the board to have. That's, you know, I mean, all of our boards and committees serve at, you know, at the pleasure of the council and you know, whatnot. So we've not, and Joe, I don't know, you may, I don't, again, I.
You just said it
about the
perfectly.
extent. What's that?
You just said it perfectly. I mean, part of it is, you know, the committees, just where the rubber meets the road, they're going to have to come to you probably and say, this person isn't working out, you know, but yeah, it's up to the council if you want those people on your board or not. So you could always vote them out, just like you vote them in.
Yeah, I mean,
It's just that we haven't had to do it.
we haven't had to do that, and that's why I
No.
guess
The
to that
provision's
point,
there.
Councilor
So,
Varley,
yeah, so
hang on, is that, you know, if we run into a situation where, you know, if in fact, you know, we've got a CAT board member that is, you know, creating challenges and being disruptive and whatnot, and they're come up for reappointment, and we know, and we've got dialogue with the chair of that board or other board members, or even our staff person for that, you know, with Julie, our transit director, says, I need you to step in, and here's what's going on, and here's the documentation piece of what's transpired and why we don't want this person, you know, reconfirmed to our board. That could be something that could happen. Has it happened in the 10 years I've been doing this? One time, and that was self-handled by, you know, by that board. So.
Yeah, I'm more comfortable with it knowing, hearing you explain the interview and knowing that if something happens, because this is, like they were saying, this is the evidence that we have.
Sure,
And so
I understand that.
you know, if this is a fear and then it comes back to this and we're going, okay, that wasn't a good appointment, as long as I'm more comfortable knowing that we have a process that we can remove somebody instead of having to wait till their term expires.
Sure. Councilor Spoon?
Oh, I just wanted to follow up and, you know, you responded to me and I guess I just, on the record, want to say a couple of things. When I understand that the sense was that this applicant had maybe more experience because he had attended some meetings. My concern is, with all respect, Mr. Berge, Councilor Berge, I think you've been a valuable member of council, but when we were appointing a counselor, experience wasn't the most important thing. And so we have an application that's frankly concerning. It's incredibly political and it indicates the person doesn't want to do the job. So I feel a little tied because I think maybe in the future another helpful thing would be if there's a recommendation, I would like to see the other applications. How do I even compare this person that has a concerning application to the other applicant that was here? You know, I don't have any other information. And so I understand that we have a recommendation, but it would be helpful, I think, also to see the applications, you know, on the record of the people that weren't selected so that people can make a decision about whether or not, how do I know if this is the best applicant? Because I don't have any other information. What I have is a concerning application. And like Councilor Parker, while I respect that you had that conversation, you know, he didn't come today to explain more. You guys, you know, there's nothing on the record to explain more. I can tell you that this application is incredibly concerning to me, so I'm going to be a no vote too. But I wish that we had the information of the other applicants so we could make informed decisions on whether or not we believe, in addition to the recommendation of the interview committee, that this was actually the best candidate.
So do we want to then pull the planning commission solely out as the standalone in this process?
I'm comfortable doing that with all appointments because I think it's important because a lot of the information and the motions and the actions we take as council start at the committee level. I think if we're going to make decisions about whether or not we agree that this is the best candidate, that's impossible to do if it's the only candidate information we have. Right. And the interview committee is an important part of that, and I respect the recommendation, but with everything else, when a recommendation comes to us, we get all the evidence. And then we can decide if we agree with the recommendation or not. But when it comes to appointing to commissions, I have evidence I don't like, and I don't have the other applicant's evidence, and you're asking me to decide if I agree that this was the best candidate. And right now I can't do that because I don't have the information of the other candidate. What I do have is a concerning application.
Councilor Parker?
One of the advantages our current administration has is that we now have two people that have had recent experience in other jurisdictions and have seen these processes in other jurisdictions. I think this has been a robust discussion, and what I would encourage our staff and our legal counsel to do is to sit down and say, what did we hear? And what are some options that we can bring back? We don't have to finally engineer this on the dais tonight, but I think we've raised some questions about the process, whether we want a single type of application, supplemental application, what are some other jurisdictions doing? So perhaps our off-ramp to this freeway would be to say, asking staff at some point in the first quarter to bring back some recommendations to us.
Okay. Any other comments, dialogue?
Yeah, I understand what you're saying, Councilor Spoon, and you make some valid points. I do a lot of interviews.
So do I, yeah.
And what I do understand is when people put together resumes, or in this case, an application, it's just as good as what it's written on, because I see a lot of resumes that are fabricated and don't actually give somebody justification. I also see an application like this where somebody has a lot of time and they try and make it sound good, and they kind of go overboard on certain issues and stuff like that. To me, it's when you sit down with them and you hear them and you talk to them and you hear what they have to say, that's when the rubber meets the road, so to speak.
Sure.
That was a defining moment. Both candidates were very strong. By the sounds of it, we might have the other candidate as part of the committee as well, because we've got another opening now and he's still interested. As we spoke with him, none of the stuff that was in here even came out in that fashion. So I take it as a nonpartisan position anyways, so I'm not looking at it as you know, well, I don't forget what your comment was about his political.
Yeah, no, it's a very political application.
Right,
There's a lot of that in there,
and
for
it's
sure.
it's a nonpartisan
Exactly.
committee.
Yeah.
So I don't even hold any weight on that.
Right. So just to respond, I totally respect that. Usually when someone hires someone, though, the hiring committee, they all get a chance to talk to the person. What I have to work with is the application. I understand that you have more information than that, but it's not normal, like, if you have a hiring panel at a job, that not everyone in the hiring committee had a chance to talk to the applicant, right? You work with the information you have. You have more information than I have. But also, like, it is a little bit concerning to me. It is a nonpartisan position, but the application is very, very partisan. And it may not have come up in the interview, but it's still what he chose to present as why he wants to be involved in the board. Whether he didn't talk about that in the interview or not is, you know, that may be a decision, but that's the information I have to work with. So I totally respect where you're coming from and how that might influence your vote. I didn't get to talk to the candidate, so.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I agree with Councilor Parker. It's been a good, robust discussion. I think there's some good suggestions. You and I have talked, I think, in the past that for a couple of the committees, like Planning and Canby Utility, it would be good to have some specialized questions that get some thoughtful write-out before they come to us, and we kind of on the spot start asking about megawatts and gigawatts and things like that. So that's an improvement that staff can reflect on. Overall, you know, for this board, I'm not really interested in becoming the interviewing body for all the committees. I think we have a good process that over the years has worked really pretty well. I have good faith in the committees. Joe can advise on if the charter even allows us to take that role. I guess ultimately we're the decider, but that'll be fun to hear Joe's take on that. It's a good process. Now and then you do get a person that you get a yellow alert about or doesn't agree with where you are on the spectrum. I think that's the norm for me, to hire and appoint people that are not in alignment with me politically. So yeah, I have to put that aside and look at the person and look at the interview. My goodness, I live in a world where resumes are a total game, and you got to talk to the person. On a more personal note, I remember my interview before council when I was being appointed, and I majorly did not understand and flubbed up on the Urban Renewal Agency and how it works. And yeah, you know, it's kind of worked out a little different for me. So I have some experience with really messing up on that, what I wrote and how I interviewed for that. You probably remember that. Regarding Jason, a few comments on the person themselves. I did work with Jason on Popty Farm HOA. It's been a number of years. I did find him to be a very capable leader. He was the president of the association. He had a great mind, very energetic, servant's heart, and just an all-around great guy that steered the HOA for a number of years. And HOAs, if you've had experience with them, are a morass, and I hope I emphasize that correctly, of laws and regulations. And I found Jason to be very good at respecting the law, yet looking out for the intent and spirit as well of the law in terms of protecting the community and the people. So as a disclaimer, he's not a personal friend or work associate with me, but that is, I did want to get out. I do have experience with him in a leadership and volunteer role.
Okay.
So thank you.
Great. Thank
Mr.
you.
Mayor,
Yes.
I move to approve the appointment of Jason Taylor to the Planning Commission for a term expiring December 31st, 2021.
Okay.
Second.
Motion's been made by Councilor Hensley and seconded by Council President Dale to approve Jason Taylor to the appointment of the Planning Commission for a term to expire on
December 31st, 2021.
December 31st, 2021. Any other comment or discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Nay.
So that carries 4-2. Thank you all. I appreciate the conversation.
Good conversation.
Move on to item number 9, City Administrator's Business and Staff Reports.
Just a couple items. I completed a tour of all park facilities with Jeff Snyder. That was very informative. As you know, there's always little things you can do to parks. There's some more substantive, and then up to the chain of everything. The other one, just kind of getting my hands around park issues in the community. I was talking to the mayor yesterday. That's one that we're going to need to wrestle with, because it's kind of all over the place, and it'd be good to get some forward progress. You know, we could do smaller projects up to bigger ones, so I think it'd be nice to get some things done for our community. So that's going to take some effort, because like there's lots of opinions on this. So, but I think we can make that progress. And then a second one, kind of related. I met with Trip Goodall, school superintendent, had a very productive discussion. Looks like the school district has some flexibilities regarding leases on our current site for the adult center and the pool, potentially the Ackerman. So I think we made kind of an inroad there, just discussion. I'll follow up that, and we'll see where we can go.
Great. Thank you for that, Scott. Appreciate that. Just some quick updates. I know that we've already talked about kind of the signal tonight at Fred Meyer and Hazeldale and Sequoia.
Yeah.
Updates on, so we talked about the quiet zone, splash pad, like where are we at in process with that? What are we looking at in terms of next steps on that?
Yes, so next steps, getting citizen input on the 3 plans, and actually our display boards are going to go out, I think this week or by Monday, and so we'll be taking input for a couple weeks, and we'll also promote that on Facebook and the city website. And at that point, then we'll try to get dialed in, really kind of set the final budget, and then we'll move forward on that.
Okay, and things are working well with the fire district on the space out there on the north side for their future north side. We're still good there?
Yeah.
Okay. Great. Perfect. Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. And the second opportunity for citizen input. Chief, Carol? No? All right. Action review.
All right, you've approved the consent agenda and the appointment to the Planning Commission.
Great. Thank you. We do have a meeting, one more meeting this month, but not first week of January. So we will be here bright-eyed and bushy-tailed on the 18th, so we'll save our adieus for then, but I will take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Ooh.
Second. I even waited.
The motion has been made by Councilor Varwig and seconded by Councilor Hensley to adjourn. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, aye, aye.
So moved. Canby, good night, and we'll see you in 2 weeks.